Alright, hey, in this video I wanted to go over what my gear selection choice was when I did the Presidential Traverse. If you saw the last video, you saw kind of an evolution of my hike. We did a test hike the day before, and then we made our plans to do the Traverse. And unfortunately for me, the weather did not hold like the forecast said it would. But I wanted to kind of go over the gear that I had and what I had planned for the hike itself. And I think that the first thing we'll start with is I use Black Diamond Pursuit trekking poles with cork grips. Now these are the anti-shock version, and the actual anti-shock is actually in the handle and not on the tip. But these are great. They extend out to 140 centimeters, which is perfect for me because I'm 6'9", and a half, and they work really well, and I like them. I like the grips versus some of the others that I've tried, and I've been through 3 or 4 pairs, and these seem to do the best for me. The other staple are the Brooks Cascadia. These are the Cascadia 17s. I hiked in the Ultra Lone Peaks for a long time, put about 300 miles on them, and they really did not hold up well. And I noticed that I had some bruising on the bottom of my feet because of how their rock plate is set up. So I switched to the Cascadia 17, which has a larger rock plate in it, and I've really been pleased. The sole is grippy, and I really didn't have any issues, and we were on rocks about 90% of the time through the Traverse. I use a Spot GPS satellite communicator for emergencies, and so that Emily can track me back at home, so she can see how I'm moving. This drops breadcrumbs every 10 minutes and really provides a good tracking, and it's got a full keyboard, which is what I like versus the Garmin. So I can type on this just like a keyboard to send messages or whatever, so I like that. I use a Hyperlite Mountain Gear fanny pack. I didn't really like fanny packs at all until I tried them, and then since I tried it the first time, I always have it on. So it's a good way to access food, snacks. I keep my phone in there when I'm hiking, if I'm not in my through hiking pack, which actually has a phone pouch, and it keeps everything secure and waterproof. And in here I keep some basic stuff. A small knife and some chapstick. So on this hike in particular, I actually had 2 headlamps. The headlamp that I started hiking with was this Claymore 3 headlamp, and it lasted the entire time. It's a little bit heavy and bulky, but I knew that I wanted to have something that had a lot of battery life, since my hike started at 2 a.m. and I knew that the sun wasn't going to come up until a little before 6. I also have my standard hiking light with me, which is a Nicor. It's super light, it's super reliable, and I had this as a backup just in case this failed, because the type of terrain that I was on, you have to have light. So I carry this in here as well, along with some Super Skin blister protection, and that's just in case I started to get blisters somewhere, that I could have something to put it on. That stuff is a lot like moleskin or any of the Leukotape or whatever it is that you might find that does the same thing. So my gear that I started with, I have some basic REI gaiters to keep sand and dirt and stuff out of my shoes. The one thing about the Ultra Lone Peaks that's nice is they have an integrated gaiter system in them, whereas the Brooks do not. They have a gaiter tab, but they don't actually make a gaiter that's made for their shoes. So I use a pair of REI ones. I had a pair of Darn Tough socks which I really like. Just a lightweight synthetic t-shirt, my outdoor research vintage hat, and then just a pair of running shorts. These happen to be Lululemon running shorts, and I really like the way that they fit. And that's how I started. It was kind of, I believe, in hiking cool, you want to start hiking cold because you're going to heat up. I never start off with jackets or layers or anything like that, because especially like on this hike where we had to climb 3,500 feet right away, I knew I was going to be sweating out the gate, so I started as light as I could. So this is the pack that I carried. It's the Gossamer Gear Murmur 36 Hyperlight. This weighs 12.5 ounces by itself when it's empty. And as it sits right now, this pack weighs 9 pounds and 5 ounces. And I have 2 smart water bottles in here. They're empty, of course, but I have all the stuff that I carried and my food, and it's basically under 10 pounds and was super comfortable to wear. So like I said, I carried 2 liters of water with me all the time. In the front pouch I had my poop kit with a shovel and some toilet paper. I catted in Be Free water filter. There's tons of water all along the way, but I always I like to have my own, and I always like to have the ability to make water if I can, and I did a couple times. On the traverse there are 2 huts plus Mount Washington where you can get water, but I filter that anyway just because it's something that I'm used to. I have a filter, I'm going to run it through. It doesn't take any more time. I knew that the weather could be bad, so I had some rain pants, and these are a pair by Marmot. They're lightweight, and really I ended up using them more for wind protection than anything else. I brought a bug net, not that I needed it because the wind was so bad a bug couldn't last where I was. And then my raincoat, which is the Black Diamond Stormline, and this thing is awesome. It's great for wind, and I wore it almost the entire day, so almost 12 hours through rain and mist and everything else, and this kept me extremely dry, extremely comfortable. It has pit zips. It's a little expensive, but I highly recommend it because it didn't wet out at all. Inside of my pack, I carried a bunch of extra stuff, knowing that the temperature varies. When I started the hike, I was at 1,700 feet. When I finished atop Mount Washington, we're over 6,000 feet. And so, given the fact that the elevation changes, that changes temperature, and also the fact that weather is unpredictable and forecasts are not always accurate, as I found out, having all the extra stuff is really important. So my food bag is a Hilltop Packs food bag, and I carried some extra electrolytes, food, extra food, emergency food, just in case something happened. I had plenty of calories in here to sustain me through the trip. And then everything else I kept in individual dry bags. I had a set of glove liners by Outdoor Research, and then this is something that I bought right before the trip, were some seal skin waterproof gloves. And these things are touch capable, so you can use them with your phone, but they saved my butt because they kept my hands dry and warm. And I think that if it wasn't for these, that I probably would have had a whole lot more trouble than I did. Because a lot of the time, especially once you get to the summits, you're having to put your trekking poles up and rock crawl the entire time. And having a nice set of gloves to keep your hands from getting cut up on the rocks is good, but also everything was wet. So it was really nice to have these. This was a last minute purchase because I was worried about rain and storms, just because that area is known to have bad weather, and it really worked out for me. I had an extra pair of Darn Tough socks if I needed them. I kept a towel just in case if I needed to dry off. And then I had some emergency base layers just in case. I got Smart Wool, just a t-shirt, and that was in case I needed some dry clothes. And then I had an Outdoor Research merino wool long sleeve mid layer, just in case I needed it. And I ended up not needing these, which was good. And my other bag, I had an emergency bivvy just in case something happened up there and I needed to have some shelter. I always carry one of these with me. If I'm not carrying my full pack, it has my tent and my sleep system in it. And that way, if I need an emergency shelter, I have one. All right, what's left in here is my Outdoor Vitals long sleeve hoodie. This thing is awesome. It's super lightweight. It keeps you warm, and it actually helps pull moisture off. And I wore that most of the day once it got cool. I had an extra shirt, an extra pair of running shorts, and then I had a merino wool, just a thin hat, and then another hat to go over top of that. And I ended up wearing that once I got cold, which didn't take long. And then I had 2 extra pairs of socks. So I was terrified my feet were going to get wet and I was going to have issues with wet feet. And then my last bag, I had my puffy jacket. This is a down jacket by Patagonia that kept me warm. And I had an extra sun hoodie just in case. So I was well over prepared for what I needed, but I was terrified that that I was going to get caught in some bad weather. And I heard lots of reports of folks having trouble with hypothermia out there, especially once you get above tree line, because there is no shelter and there's no quick way to get off any of those mountaintops. And so I felt I was better prepared, better to be prepared than I was not prepared. And it ended up working out. I had some terrible weather. It was the summits were in the clouds the whole day. We had wind chills in the 30s. We had wind somewhere in the neighborhood of sustained 40 to 45 miles an hour with gusts into the 70s until the late afternoon. And rain. We had sleet at some points. It was definitely a very challenging hike for me, but I was very pleased with all my gear, how all my gear performed, and it kept me safe. So, again, in the theme of planning to hike, understand that you really have to take a look at where you're going and make sure that you have the stuff that you need to keep yourself safe and to make sure you're successful at what you're doing. So, hope you guys got something from the gear. Kind of this shows what I did for this particular hike. And yeah, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, ask me a question. Please consider subscribing, and we'll talk to you later.